So, Misty, I'm really pleased to meet you and to talk about your new book, which I'll hold up here, Swiftonomics: How Women Mastermind and Redefine Our Economy. So, let me just introduce you as, at least as it is on your book. It says Misty L. Heggenness is co-director of Kansas Population Center, associate professor of economics and public affairs at the University of Kansas, and former principal economist and senior advisor at the U.S. Census Bureau. It's a lot. So I want to just read just a little bit by introducing you from the book that stood out to me, and then we'll
Sure.
jump in a little bit. It says, some may believe Taylor Swift has beaten men at their game. Challenged by a society, culture, and industry not made to benefit her, she used the best mastermind strategies to create a path forward. She perfected the art of escaping confines. She leaned into the power of women's experience and voices. And in doing so, she developed a movement, a Swiftonomics movement, if you will. She focused on providing art and experience that other women and men who are thriving as economic beings want. And as my background works a lot with men and their families. So I found the book very engaging. I shared a little bit with you about my connection with Taylor
Mhm.
Swift and her work. But before
Yeah,
we jump into the book, maybe you could tell us a bit about your own professional background and how you came to
sure.
write this particular book.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you, Jed, for having me. This is great, and I'm looking forward to our conversation. So I'm an economist by training, but I didn't start out that way. I have an undergraduate degree in Spanish and family social science, and I also have a master's in social work. So I came to economics kind of late in the game in my career. My PhD is in applied economics, and I worked for about 12 years in the federal government, and now I'm at the University of Kansas as a associate professor. Um, I was really interested in writing this book, so I've always studied gender, and it's kind of been a unifying theme throughout my career. You might, look at my career and think that I've kind of bounced around a little bit, but it's always been really centered on understanding gender, understanding the expectations that we as a society have on women and men. And I really got the idea for writing this book when the pandemic hit. And a lot of the stories that we were hearing in the news media really didn't jive with what I was seeing in the data in terms of what was happening with women and work. And around that same time during the pandemic, Taylor Swift came out with two albums, Folklore and Evermore. And she just was so productive. And I had been following her career since probably about 2019. And I just really started looking a lot more closely at her career path and the way that she's maneuvered herself. And it just became obvious to me that she would be the perfect muse for the book. So this is really what I'm trying to do with the book is really write about the modern woman and modern relationships, modern families, and the ways in which we, think about pairing up, the changes that have happened with women and what the expectations of younger women are today. I think it fits squarely into this conversation that is happening at the national level in terms of, you know, um, what do young men want? What do young women want? There was just an article in Vox on Gen Z men and their, desire to have children, and that is actually the percent that want to have children is higher than Gen Z women, and so I think all of this really has to do with how we all behave as economic agents and the opportunities in front of us, and then how do we think about those opportunities and how do we shift society policies and programs to better support the families that we want to see in the future.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I shared with you, and I'll just share with the audience, this little story that I've told, which kind of was my introduction to Taylor Swift. I shared the story when I was a little kid, way little, like 3 years old, and my mother took me to the shoe store to get my first big boy shoes.
Hmm.
And up until then, I wore little white little baby shoes, like at least in my era, most little kids wore.
Yeah.
And for the first time, as I looked around the shoe store with all these beautiful color, I was just entranced by the beauty. And I saw the pair that just struck me that I wanted, and they were a pair of red Keds. And I said, "That's what I want." And the shoe store fitter came out with the box that he brought from the back, and instead of red Keds, they were blue. And he explained to my mother that red was for boys, or red was for girls, but blue
Girls.
was for boys, and my
Hmm.
red Keds were not appropriate for me being a boy. And luckily, my mother said, after some talk, give the boy what he wants. So I walked
Yep.
out dancing with my little red kid shoes. And later, I write articles about sex and gender, and I was imagining that things have changed. And I did a Google search on red kids, assuming that now we would see a lot of males wearing red kids. And all
Yeah.
we saw was Taylor Swift uh, with red kids and many
Yeah.
women. And then
Yeah.
Taylor Swift, I know that music. So in any event, I got interested in red again and looking
Hmm.
at Taylor Swift and her music. And so share a little bit of how you kind of connected with Taylor Swift and her music, and then eventually how it tied in with the book.
The book. Yeah. So I'm a little bit older than Taylor, and so I didn't really follow her music closely when she first started. Of course, I was aware of all of the pop songs that came on the radio, but it wasn't until 2019 when I really started paying close attention to her. And at that time, she came out with an album called Lover, and on the album there was a song called The Man. And she made a music video for it, which I encourage all listeners to go and watch it till the very, very end, post credits, because it's a really fun, the way that she produced that music video is really fun. But I instantly over-identified with the lyrics in The Man. At the time, I had been working in a federal statistical agency. I was working around a lot of, older leaning, white leaning, male leaning individuals, and I was in a position of leadership. And being a woman in a position of leadership in that space, I often felt like it was a little bit harder for me to do my job than some of my male colleagues. And one reason that I can just say off the top of my head is people were really comfortable complaining about me to my boss, directly to my boss, who was the chief scientist of the organization, if I was asking them to do something that they didn't want to do, or making them, uncomfortable in any way by directing some of the work. And so I just saw the music video of The Man. I over-identified with it. And I just really started paying attention to Taylor at that point because she was writing lyrics that were so true to my experience at the time. And so that's how I got interested in her and in her career and started paying closer attention. And then during the pandemic, when she came out with Folklore and Evermore, I just couldn't believe that, most of us were just trying to survive the pandemic, and not go stir crazy in our houses. And here she was being uber productive. And um, so that, I mean, that's my entrance to Taylor Swift. And
Interesting.
just the fact that I study gender and the economy, and she's just so incredibly successful, and it was a hook instantaneously for me to be drawn to her and interested in what she was doing.
That's great. And in the book, obviously the title speaks to Taylor Swift, and but in the book you feature and you talk about the work of other women that are entrepreneurial in various ways and
Hmm.
is successful in various ways. And really look at the broader kind of change that women have brought to the economy. Could you talk a little bit about this kind of broader interest in what you've learned about the kind of emerging economy that women have been involved and responsible for creating?
Yeah, I mean, it's true, the book, to be clear, Taylor Swift is the muse for the book, but the book isn't solely about Taylor Swift, as you've mentioned. And so I do speak about a lot of, famous and not so famous women of today and throughout history who have kind of been trailblazers and who have pushed for change within their industries, within their career paths and occupations. And so, one thing that I think is really true today is, women today are more educated than they've ever been. We've gotten rid of a lot of the kind of overt sexism in the workplace. There's, still lots of implicit bias and still things are happening, but just, really the overt, rigid gender roles around occupations and ability to, move up have um, really been minimized and kind of gone away in many areas. And so, what that means is that, with these higher levels of education, younger women today are more likely to have careers than jobs. They're more likely to have a part of their identity attached to the work that they're doing for pay. And what that means in terms of consumers and in terms of the market, it basically means that there's a whole pool, half of the population who has, increased discretionary wealth and money to spend on um, things for themselves. And so women today are more likely to, um, spend money on concerts, spend money on music, spend money on entertainment activities, things that give them joy, much more than they have in the past. And I think that's one of the things that Taylor has really benefited from is, she's very authentic in her lyric writing. She connects deeply with her fans. She writes stories that, her lyrics tell stories like real stories of women and of everybody, but in particular, Taylor's really good about writing about her own experiences. And those type of stories don't often get told in the kind of dominant culture and dominant media. And it's not just Taylor that's doing it. You can look at Reese Witherspoon, who was frustrated with Hollywood executives that were continually passing on stories that had depth and grit about women. And so restarted Hello Sunshine production company and started producing some of these movies and stories that, told about the experiences of women, with depth. And so I think for me, like when I think about the modern economy, when I think about the modern woman, when I think about where we are today and where we're headed, it's really about understanding how all of that growth has led to additional economic opportunity and resources for women. And what that means in terms of relationship building, what that means in terms of policy making. It means that we have to look at it a little bit differently. And so today more than ever, uh, couples are partnering up because they have similar consumption interests. So,
Yeah.
they both like the same things. They like to travel. They like to, go out for dinner or whatever it might be. And it's much less this like rigid gender division of partnering up because one person's going to go out and, work in a paid job and the other one's going to kind of stay home and take care of family and resources. And I think that faster we understand that how quickly that dynamic has shifted, the better off we'll all be. Um, yeah, I'll stop
Yeah.
there. But
Okay. And I think that really, kind of leads into why I found this book particularly interesting. My own professional background is in the field of gender specific medicine and relational health and how, men and women, navigate these various areas. And I found there's a whole lot in Taylor Swift's story and many other women that can really benefit men if we understood some of the, the underlying dynamics and why they're successful, what we can learn from them. Could you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about specifically what you think men, might learn from the book and from,
Mhm.
the songs that Taylor Swift, might be singing that we might not necessarily be familiar with, that could be very helpful in our understanding of ourselves, our lives, our relationships, and how to do well in the world of economics.
Yeah, I guess not to be cheesy, but I'll just go ahead and put out there, and I don't write about this in the book, but Taylor's current relationship with Travis Kelce. In part of my research for writing this book, I've spent quite a bit of time following that storyline, and I think Travis Kelce is at least his public persona and the way that he comports himself in the public eye is really attuned to uh, he's very attuned to kind of the economic woman of today, I would say, in the sense that he has this relationship with Taylor. They're both independently successful. They both have really hot, um, grandiose careers. And they both have fun together. And again, they like to do the same type of kind of entertaining things together. Travis doesn't appear to be threatened at all by Taylor's career and her ambitions and what she does for her job. I mean, she calls her career a job all the time, and she even talks about it as a job in her music lyrics. And so I think there's a lot to be learned from that relationship. There's a lot to be learned about how when they started dating and really the media came after Taylor, and there was a couple of you know really tense moments where there was a lot of scrutiny around her showing up to football games, whatever it might be. And Travis always had her back. And not only Travis, but like the whole NFL community. So Andy Reid also had their back in that relationship. Roger Goodell, who is the NFL commissioner, also was going out and doing interviews and saying he had zero problem with her attending the concerts. He was happy for them. Now, the cynical person will say, "Oh, well, they were supporting that relationship because of all of the financial additional benefit it was bringing to the NFL." The NFL for about a decade had really been trying to, get more younger folks involved in watching football and being football fans. They were trying to get more younger women involved, and they tried multiple attempts. I think there's something related to like video games, and they tried some other marketing efforts, and had were still kind of struggling to get younger generations interested. And Taylor came along, and all of a sudden you had a whole bunch of younger generation and younger generation girls really interested in wanting to watch the game on Sundays with their parents. And so it is true that part of their support for Taylor was probably not Travis's, but part of the NFL support for Taylor was probably motivated partially financially, but that's also a sign of the times in how we are women are moving into their own economic space, and they don't want to do it alone. Taylor doesn't, she's very interested in partnering up, and but it's this idea of not wanting to partner up and then being expected to give something up for that, right? So Travis doesn't ask her to give anything up in order to be in that relationship with him. And they're equals, and they're working at it as equals. And again, at least that's the public persona of it. And I think that's the key is how do we move forward in a society where we do have these rigid, implicit bias and these rigid assumptions in our heads that we're not even aware of what men should do and what women should do, and how do we create a space where maybe men feel less threatened with a partner who makes the same or more than them, or where maybe women don't have issues with men who want to, stay home and, take care of the children. And um, I think we just need to, all of it rests on, deep and intense communication that's iterative and trying to understand really what the hopes and dreams are of the other person that you're, deciding to share your life with, and thinking about ways in which, you can merge those goals and those ideas. And it just looks different today than it has in the past. And I think young women today are leery to, it's more costly for them today to have children than it ever has been in the past because they have these, career paths available to them. And, the answer isn't to, for women to stop, getting educated or to stop having careers, but, rather the answer is how do we create systems that allow for more flexibility around having a career and having a family.
Yeah, and I think that benefits men and women, and whatever you identify by way of gender. I know people that
Yep.
follow me at Men Alive know that, I have been blessed with learning a lot from women over the years, including my wife that we've been married now for 46 years. And part
Congratulations.
of being successful in the world, and certainly at a time when economics are difficult for everybody, there's a whole lot of things that we can learn from successful people and how they
Hmm.
do it. And certainly one of the things you've touched on with Taylor in particular is her ability to want to speak very personally from her own experience, to share deep feelings, to be able to not give up on, being able to control your own destiny. And I think these are
Hmm.
all things I've learned over the years that have enabled me and many other men to be successful. And what I've learned, and I'm sure, it's, I'm glad you brought up the relationship of uh, Travis and Taylor, because I mean everybody now knows that, whether you were
Yeah,
watching sports and had never heard of Taylor before or vice versa. And it
right.
just, I think, really speaks to the opportunity that we have at this time in human history to deepen our connections, to learn from each other, and to support each other in, doing good in the world. So, yay on
Yeah.
all of that. So I know I've written numerous books. I've written 17 books now, and I know it's challenging to get a book written, to find the publisher that's right, to get it out in the world. And I know this book. I'm going to just hold it up again, just for people to be able to recognize it when you see it. Um, is recently out, and I wonder if you
Mm.
could share a little bit about whatever feedback you've gotten thus far, kind of how it's doing in the world, and what you can say about the feedback and process that you've learned so far as the book gets out, and hopefully will even reach a wider audience than it's starting to get so far.
Yeah. I'm happy to do that. I want to follow up with one last comment that's going through my head about the last
Yeah.
thing we were talking about. And it's just to say that, I think traditional, kind of really rigid, stereotypical expectations based on gender, it's not that they don't work for women. I feel like they don't work for men either. It's a lot of pressure to be the sole breadwinner of your family. And I think that's why it's important for us to be more flexible and to have more options and to talk with each other about, what is our life going to look like moving forward? Because that type of either or black and white scenario, again, based on gender and gender roles, it doesn't serve anybody. So I just wanted to kind of follow up with that because I think we oftentimes focus on women and what are the constraints that puts on women, but it puts a ton of constraints on men as well. Um, in terms of the book, yeah, so the book came out on the 27th of January. It's it was so fun to write. It's my first book, so it's my number one debut.
Yeah,
And
many.
yeah, and the reception of it has been really great so far. I try to it's really narrative nonfiction, so I really try to do lots of storytelling throughout the book. I bring in my own examples of my own family, and that's just trying to hone into this idea of authenticity. And, oftentimes women's stories don't get told in history. And so I just felt like it was important if I'm writing a book about women in the economy, um, to write about the women in my family too, and how they've always been extremely economic, even if the society, outside of our homes doesn't always recognize it. Um, so the process for the book, it took me a while. I'll just say it took me a while to find an editor and a publisher. I wrote three different book proposals before I landed on this one. Um, and I had some help along the way with colleagues in my profession who helped connect me with an amazing um, literary agent and an amazing editor. And that was having support of my network and connections was really helpful. But yeah, so far the reception has been really great. I've had, a handful of folks, tell me that really resonated with them, that they could see their own experiences in the stories. And, sometimes when you see a book about, a pop singer, you might think like, there's nothing that I could have in common with that famous person. And, but the fact of the matter is we're all human and we all have feelings and we all are just, trying to get by. And so, in that sense, I think a lot of Taylor's experience, outside of, being a billionaire, it can be relatable for lots of folks. And I tell lots of stories about women in history that I think will be really relatable to your audience as well.
Super. Well, um, since this, is a unique opportunity for you to speak to a male audience as you're talking to me and many of the others, I have women and men in my community,
Hmm.
but what would you say to men if you had a little group of men or 100 men who, really want to hear and want to get some take homes? What specific things would you say that if you read this book, would be beneficial to you as a man?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked this question. I actually really, really hope a lot of men read this book. And when you see the cover, it's pink and purple and very girly. And so, someone might look at it and say, "Oh, that's not for me. That's, for girly women, or that's for women, or whatever it might be." But Um, I wrote this book as if, and maybe this will sound strange, but I wrote this book as if women ruled the world. So I wrote this book as if women were in a place of kind of dominance in society, and not in like a threatening way, but I wrote it as though our experiences are the ones that are always portrayed in the big box Hollywood movies, or our experiences are the ones that are written in the history books. And so I think that, you know, what I hope is that men read the book and they come away with a much better and deeper understanding of um, who women are today in society and what our needs are and what we hope to get in terms of relationships and what we aspire for. And in a moment in time where it feels like there's lots of divisiveness and there's not much across group communication happening, this is an opportunity, I think, for men to just get a deeper understanding of where women are at today and what we're looking for and what we need. So
Well, that's brilliant. And I would just add to that from my own experience as a man with this is that an additional benefit that I think men will get from reading the book is to be able to hear both authentic stories from you and from Taylor and other women uh, who traditionally have been excluded from areas of economic power and such, who now are emerging at a time when there are many boys and men, and there's been lots of recent studies now about males falling behind in school, males, dying and of deaths of despair and so on.
Despair, yeah.
So in many cases, the experience that both women have had when they've been excluded and some of the ways that they've suffered, as well as now in many ways, women in many aspects have become dominant, and we can learn a lot. Both we can reconnect in
Yeah.
ways because we all have women we
Yep.
love in our lives, and men connect. But we can also learn some very useful tools that will help men and others to be able to be successful in all aspects of our lives. So I think there's a lot can be learned from it. I'm glad the book is out and available. Anything you want to say by way of, we'll bring this to a close, of both where people can find the book, how people can find out more about you and your work if they want to stay connected or learn more about, I have no doubt you're going to write more books and be interested to stay connected with you.
Yeah, definitely. The book, the title is Swiftynomics. It's available on Amazon or thebookshop.org, or in local bookstores. It's also available in Barnes and Noble. There's a website, swiftynomics.com. I also have a personal website, mistyheggenness.com. And the one maybe extra bonus that I'll give your listeners is
Yeah.
I have another pet project that I did at the same time as this book, and it's called the Care Board, and it's a dashboard of economic statistics um, developed by caregivers for caregivers. And so, kind of in this vein of trying to understand where women are at today and women's perspectives and the value add and the contributions they bring to society, checking out the Care Board, it's just thecareboard.org, I think is another way to glean some deeper understanding of women today.
Super. Well, thank you. I really enjoyed our talk. Maybe we can do another one sometime on expanded issues, and definitely let's stay connected. And definitely want to recommend. I'm going to hold the book up one last time to the camera so people can see it. And it's really not too pink. It's kind of purple, and so whatever its color, it's
Yeah,
worth having and getting and sharing. So. Thank you, and we'll look forward to connecting more in the future.
excellent. Thank you so much for your time. This has been fun.
Yeah.